Hi, everybody. Karen Schaal here, and welcome to the Karen Schaal podcast, where we expand the mind and grow the heart. And remember to hit that subscribe button. I have a question for you. What is the most powerful part of you? The part that can change your entire life is something you may have been ignoring. Are you actually living your life or just getting through it? Today, we're waking up. We're stepping out of default mode, and we're learning how to actually show up. Not just for the world, but for ourselves. So let's get started. So if we're going to show up, if we're going to live with presence instead of passivity, we need to start with something simple but essential, and that is awareness. Not as a buzzword, not as an abstract idea, but as a moment-by-moment practice. Awareness is not about fixing yourself. It's not about overthinking or being hypervigilant. And it's definitely not about perfection. Awareness is about noticing gently and honestly what you're actually doing, saying, and being. It sounds simple, but it's everything. We wake up and dive straight into motion, getting the kids ready, walking the dog, answering texts, checking emails. And before we've even taken a real breath, half the day is gone. We're reacting to life, not relating to it. We're performing, people-pleasing, surviving, but rarely are we witnessing ourselves. You know that feeling when you arrive somewhere and can't remember the drive? That's not just happening in your car. That's happening in your life. It's happening in your conversations, your relationships, your self-talk, your choices. And the problem isn't that we're doing something wrong. It's that we've never been taught to slow down and look. We were taught to ask, how am I feeling right now? What tone am I using? What is my body trying to tell me? Does this version of me even feel true? And here's where it became personal for me. I remember when I was first beginning to become aware. I had this moment, or really the absence of a moment, that opened my eyes. I realized I hadn't truly been present, not when it happened, and not when I looked back. I couldn't remember the experience, not because it wasn't meaningful, but because I wasn't there for it. And the heartbreaking part, it wasn't the first time I'd lost a moment like that. I missed it once by not being present and lost it again by not being able to remember it later. That was a turning point for me because something in me didn't want to live like that anymore. I wanted to feel my life, not just manage it, not just survive it. And you don't have to overhaul your life to begin. This stuff starts in small ways. Pausing for just a moment before you respond, feeling your feet on the floor when you walk into a room, noticing when your shoulders are tight or your breath is shallow. And this isn't about judgment, it's about curiosity. It's about waking up to the life you're already living and remembering you can't live brilliantly by default. You have to choose to see it. That experience of missing the moment and losing the memory, that was when I realized if I wanted to live my life fully, I couldn't wait for awareness to happen to me. I had to practice it. Awareness isn't something you're born with or without. It's not a personality trait. It's like a muscle. And like any muscle, it gets stronger the more you use it. But most of us were never taught how. We were taught to keep going, be efficient, stay productive. We were praised for multitasking, not for slowing down. And somewhere in all of that, we lost the practice of checking in with ourselves. So instead of awareness, we learned reaction. Instead of reflection, we learned distraction. Instead of presence, we learned performance. But the truth is, your life is sending you signals all the time. Your body, your breath, your tone, your energy, they're all trying to tell you something. And awareness is what allows you to listen. You notice your jaw tightens when you're around certain people. You feel that little pause in your gut before you say yes to something you don't want. You hear yourself explaining, apologizing, shrinking, and this time you catch it. That's awareness. Noticing what's happening in real time, not to criticize it, but to understand it. Awareness gives you the chance to choose, and those moments start to add up. They become a pattern, a practice, a new way of living, one where you are present enough to actually experience your life. But let me be real, a lot of this can feel disjointed at first. New thoughts, new behaviors, new ways of speaking or setting boundaries, they can feel awkward, clumsy even, because they're not familiar yet. But here's the amazing thing. If in your awareness, you keep choosing to practice new emotions, new actions, especially ones that move you toward goodness, they eventually become natural. They become who you are. I've seen this in my own life. There are so many old behaviors I simply wouldn't even think of doing now. Not because I'm forcing anything, because those patterns just don't fit anymore. I've changed. And I'll never forget the first time I noticed it. I was in a situation that would have normally triggered an old reaction. Defensiveness, criticism, looking for fault. And instead I responded with calm, with care. And it wasn't performance. It wasn't faked. It was just real. And I remember thinking, hey, this stuff actually works. It had happened slowly, day by day, little shift by little shift, until one day I realized I had a new way of being. And that's what awareness gives you. It doesn't demand overnight transformation. It offers a quiet, steady way to evolve into the person of you that feels most true, until the fullness of who you were meant to be. As your awareness grows, you start to see things that were always there but hidden beneath the noise. You begin to notice just how intuitive you are, how deeply you care, how quick you are to adapt or calm a room or read someone's unspoken need. These weren't new skills. They were your brilliance quietly operating in the background. But now you're finally present enough to see it. Awareness doesn't create your brilliance, it uncovers it. And once you start seeing it, you begin to trust it. You trust that gut feeling that tells you when something's off. You trust your ability to hold space in a conversation instead of rushing in to fill the silence. You trust the pause, the breath, the space before the old reaction kicks in. You're no longer running patterns blindly. You're choosing your tone. You're adjusting your posture. You're catching that sharp comment before it leaves your mouth. You're noticing when you want to shut down and staying open instead. And suddenly the small things don't feel so small, because those tiny, brilliant shifts are proof. You're not on autopilot anymore. You are here, you are awake, and that is what makes all the difference. Awareness doesn't just give you information, it opens your eyes. It shows you that things can be different, that your reactions aren't permanent, that your habits can evolve, that something better is possible. Science gives us the tools. Gratitude reminds us why we're trying. As psychologist Martin Seligman put it, the good life is using your signature strengths every day to produce authentic happiness and abundant gratification. But knowing what your strengths are, seeing your own brilliance, takes awareness, and using them, that takes practice. Trying is a bridge between knowing and becoming. It's the moment you move from theory to experience, from intention to action, from I hope this works to I'm doing it anyway. It's not always elegant, it's rarely instant, but it's how change begins, by trusting the science, listening closely to yourself, and choosing over and over to show up, even when you're unsure, even when it's slow, even when you're not there yet. That's how you become. And over time, when you keep choosing to show up like that, something begins to shift. Not just in how you act, but how you see yourself. There's a level of awareness that goes beyond just noticing your thoughts or behaviors. It's deeper, it's quieter, but it's incredibly powerful. It's the moment you say, oh, I'm having a reaction right now, instead of being the reaction. This isn't spiritual bypassing. This is grounded, science-backed self-awareness. Deepak Chopra calls it witnessing awareness, the ability to observe your inner experience without being consumed by it. You're not escaping your emotions. You're simply creating space around them. You see the anger without becoming the anger. You notice the anxiety without spiraling into it. You observe the thought without blindly believing it. Dr. Dan Siegel, clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA, calls this mind sight. It's the capacity to see your own mind and the mind of others with clarity and compassion. And he's found that this kind of self-observation actually reshapes the brain. It strengthens the pathways responsible for emotional regulation, empathy, and decision-making. So this just isn't a nice idea. It's a biological reset. When you pause and observe instead of react, your brain begins to wire itself for calm, clarity, and choice. So what does that actually look like in real life? It's learning to be a third-party observer of your own life, like you're watching yourself move through the day with a bit more distance and a lot more grace. And if you're anything like me, that observer might sometimes say, hey, wait a minute, who's this drama queen slamming cabinets and stress-eating rice cakes at 11 p.m.? Or maybe softer. Wow, I didn't realize I was carrying that much tension or getting that defensive or talking to myself that way. Well, that's the moment the real work begins. Because awareness isn't just about seeing clearly, it's about seeing kindly. If you're going to be the observer of your life, you can't show up like a drill sergeant. You have to show up like a friend. Someone who can tell the truth, but also offer compassion. Someone who sees the mess and says, yeah, and I still love you. Let's take the next step. So yes, be the witness, be the observer, but be the one who knows how to hold space for yourself while you grow. That's how awareness becomes a gift, not a weapon. So much of this conversation is focused on awareness as a difference between reacting and responding, and that's powerful. But awareness is more than a tool for emotional control. It's a way of seeing, a way of being, a way of coming home to yourself. When you begin to live with awareness, you start noticing things you never would have seen before. That moment your posture changes when you don't feel safe. The shift in your voice when you're not telling the truth. The energy in your body when you're around someone who drains you. The joy that bubbles up when you're doing something that aligns with your values. And the grief when you're not. Awareness is the lens that lets you see the full picture of your life. Not just your habits, not just your triggers, but your truth. It's how you start recognizing what's yours and what's not. What you've been carrying that doesn't belong. What you've outgrown but hasn't yet released. What lights you up, what shuts you down, what needs to change. It's where integrity starts and where alignment begins. And the most life-giving part? Awareness allows you to be with yourself, not just manage yourself. It moves you away from controlling your life. It's where integrity starts and where alignment begins. And the most life-giving part? Awareness allows you to be with yourself, not just manage yourself. It moves you from controlling your life to inhabiting it. When that happens, when you're present in your own story, you can begin to live on purpose. Not perfectly, of course, not all at once, but with clarity, with honesty, and with a kind of rooted strength that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. So let's bring all this home. Today wasn't about adding more to your life. It was about noticing the life you already have and learning how to live it with your eyes open. You've heard a lot in this episode that awareness is a practice, not a personality trait, that it helps you pause, not just to react differently, but to live differently. then it opens up your ability to see what you've been missing, both the patterns and the possibilities. That it's a skill rooted in science and sustained by compassion, and that it's something you can build moment by moment, breath by breath. Awareness is how you stop living by default. It's how you begin to see clearly and choose wisely. It's how you come back to yourself with kindness and truth, not to fix yourself, but to be yourself fully. This isn't, again, about perfection. It's about presence, and presence, real, grounded presence, is where your brilliance lives. So here's the invitation. Just start noticing, not everything, just one thing. How you walk into a room, how you respond to tension, how your body feels at the end of the day. That's the beginning, and it's more than enough. You don't have to master this, you just have to begin. I want to thank you for being here today. You're not just brilliant, you're becoming aware of it, and that changes everything. If this episode spoke to you, take a second to share it with someone you care about. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss a chance to join the conversation, to come back to yourself with clarity, strength, and a little more compassion each time. I'm Karen Schaal. Thanks for listening to the Karen Schaal Podcast, where we expand the mind and grow the heart. I'll see you next time.